All right, today we're tackling a really big deal in poultry health, colibacillosis. And what makes this so fascinating and honestly so tricky is that the culprit is a bacterium that's, well, it's supposed to be there. It's a normal resident in pretty much every healthy bird. So how in the world does a friend turn into a deadly foe?
That right there is the central mystery we're going to unravel today. It is a classic case of an inside job, where this everyday microbe suddenly becomes a lethal invader. So let's dive in and start examining the evidence. First things first, we have to understand that this disease is not a one-trick pony. It shows up in a whole bunch of different ways. And to really get a handle on the culprit, we have to visit the different crime scenes it leaves behind.
So our first case file, and definitely the most serious, is Colibacillosis. This is what happens when the bacteria break out of their usual hangout spot and just go everywhere. They invade the entire body. It is, without a doubt, the most devastating form of this disease.
When you look inside, the evidence is overwhelming. There's this telltale trio of inflammation. You find the sticky, white, sort of cheesy layer coating the heart, the liver, and the air sacs. The organs themselves get all dark and swollen as the infection just rages through the bird's system. It's a complete internal catastrophe.
Now, our next case file targets the most vulnerable, the brand new chicks. This one is called yolk sac infection, or the much more descriptive and frankly kind of grim mushy chick disease, and it is a major cause of death in that critical first week of life.
The scene here is, well, it's pretty rough. The chick's belly swells up because that yolk sac, which is supposed to be its first source of food, doesn't get absorbed. Instead, it just becomes this infected, inflamed disaster. The yolk itself turns into this gross, watery, foul-smelling, brown-green liquid. It's a crystal-clear sign that bacteria have completely taken over.
But, the invasion isn't always this massive systemic attack. E. coli is a really versatile attacker, and it can cause all sorts of localized problems, hitting very specific parts of the bird's body. Let's just look at a few examples.
The adaptability of this bacteria is pretty incredible, actually. It can cause this gelatinous swelling around the eyes, which we call swollen head syndrome. Or, in laying hens, it can trigger a life-threatening abdominal infection. It can even form these thick, cheesy plaques under the skin, or hard little tumor-like nodules in the gut. Just think about that. 4 totally different syndromes, all from the same culprit.
So, we've seen all the damage, but who exactly is this versatile criminal? It's time to formally identify the agent behind colibacillosis and really understand why it's such a paradox.
So, meet Escherichia coli, or E. coli for short. It's your standard, run-of-the-mill, rod-shaped bacterium. But look at that definition carefully. The most important part is right there. It's a normal inhabitant of the digestive tract. It's supposed to be there, living peacefully in the gut of pretty much every bird on the planet. And this really gets to the heart of the mystery. You've got 2 faces of E. coli. On one side, the harmless resident, just part of the team. On the other, the pathogenic invader. The difference really comes down to specific strains, or serovars. See, some strains, like the ones called O1 or O78, come with special weapons. One of their best weapons is a capsule that basically acts like an invisibility cloak, helping the bacteria hide from the bird's immune system. Okay, so this brings us to the main event, the inside job itself. If these dangerous strains of E. coli are often around, why don't they cause disease all the time? The answer isn't just about the bacteria. It's about the bird's own defenses and how they can be brought crashing down. And this quote pretty much says it all. A healthy bird, one with a strong, intact defense system, can handle E. coli just fine. The bacteria might be knocking at the door, but they just can't get in. The disease only happens when something comes along and unlocks that door for them.
So, what unlocks the door? Well, the bacteria almost never act alone. They have accomplices. These triggers that weaken the bird's defenses and create the perfect storm, the perfect opportunity for an invasion.
And these accomplices come in all shapes and sizes. You've got other infections, right? Viruses or other bacteria can distract and weaken the immune system, but just as important, if not more so, are environmental stressors. We're talking about stuff like high ammonia fumes from the litter, bad airflow, overcrowding, or super dry, dusty conditions. All of this puts a huge amount of stress on the bird's body and especially on its respiratory system. So how does this actually lead to a full-blown invasion? Well, picture this. The The bird's respiratory tract is lined with these millions of tiny hair-like structures called cilia. Their job is to constantly beat and sweep out dust and germs. But high ammonia and constant dust literally burn these cilia away. And with that protective barrier gone, any inhaled E. coli can just stick to the walls, start to multiply, and then bust right through into the bloodstream. And that's how you get that deadly choleseptemia we saw earlier.
All right, to close out our investigation, let's zoom in one last time. We've seen the crime scenes, we've identified the culprit and its accomplices. Now, let's look at the microscopic evidence to really see the damage up close and personal.
And yep, under the microscope, the story becomes crystal clear. With swollen head syndrome, you can actually see the buildup of that gelatinous fluid in pus. In the intestinal forms, you see that the delicate lining of the gut, the villi, are all worn down and blunted, with little ulcers forming. And in some really rare, nasty cases, the bacteria can even cause abscesses and tissue death right in the brain.
So, what's our final verdict in this case? E. coli isn't the primary attacker. It's an opportunistic killer. It's always there, just waiting in the wings for a breakdown in the bird's defenses. A failure that's usually caused by stress, a bad environment, or other diseases. It's that failure that turns a normal gut resident into a deadly pathogen.
And that leaves us with one last really crucial question to think about. If the culprit is always around, but it's the environment and the bird's health that actually pull the trigger, then where does prevention really begin? It suggests that fighting this disease isn't so much about fighting a bug as it is about building a fortress of good health and solid management around the bird. What do you think?